Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to some more game dev. Today we're going to be taking a look at some AI state machine stuff, or I guess to match the name of the title of the stream, some slime state machine stuff. Essentially, I want to kind of take another stab at how our AI executes their turns. I was spending some time since the last time we streamed last week. It's been about 6-7 days. I spent some time off camera working on some general combat bugs, but honestly there hasn't been a ton of time to work on the Infinite Retries to Defeat the Demon Lord side project. Real work has kept me busy. And that is the bane of being back to real work. But we're going to try and get in streams like today. We're going to try and get some stuff done, and we're going to go from there. I closed Unity at some point, because it was running slow and I forgot to launch it before we started the stream. So let's look at PureRef real quick while Unity loads up. Essentially, I've kind of narrowed down the remaining combat bugs into a couple of groups. The two bugs here around, I'd like to have it so that the action point UI should only display if we have an aggressive slime, which I'll get into what that means in a bit, and then have the music change to battle music when fighting. I kind of want to see if I can figure out what this means today. These two things are really revolving around this concept of like, maybe a slime shouldn't immediately attack you when you enter into a zone if it's been revealed, which is how it currently works. But instead, I'm thinking I want to give the slimes like a bit of a sight radius, where they'll spot you and then they'll go into like a normal behavior of trying to chase you down and fight you. And I want to make it so that the action point UI only displays if there's at least one slime that's attempting to fight you, and then we can have a state for checking whether or not we have an aggressive enemy, and if there's an aggressive enemy chasing us, then we'll turn on some battle music, and when all the enemies have been defeated that are at least aware of our presence, we will then go back to the normal zone music. So I kind of want to start moving towards these two things. I don't think we'll get there today, but I've been having trouble focusing, and streaming has been very helpful in getting me on track and moving. Let's bring the intensity down a little bit with Beliefs as the background music for a little bit here. The other stuff here I think all revolves around, well, not really UI action bar not being pixel perfect, but kind of. I might replace this action bar eventually with a different set of UI that's more static and not under the player's feet. But these 5 bugs are all kind of revolving around combat either not being clear, or the combo point system not being clear, or some bugs around the way that the AI is moving such that they can stack on the same square. And I think this all revolves around kind of a general mechanic that I want to add to hopefully alleviate this. Although I haven't been doing a lot of actual coding and data entry or programming, I have been thinking about combat and what I want to do with it quite a bit. So I have some ideas, but I'm just not ready to implement them yet. In the meantime, I'm going to focus on this idea of giving the AI a passive state or patrol state today, and we'll go from there. There's still some stuff around items, but that's really it. There's like a major refactor I want to do on combat, a little bit of fixing around the AI, and then like some clarity stuff around like showing experience when you use a skill. And there's a little bit of work here around setting up items, which is a fairly well-known, understood problem. I know exactly what I need to do to make this task function. It's really this one here around combat that's more nebulous, but Unity has loaded. I can stop rambling and we can move forward. I would like to go take a look at our AI state machine. Let's first jump in and see how the AI is currently functioning. So if we come in here and hit continue, I should have a save from yesterday, I believe, where we're entering into a room with a slime. And so what's happening right now is that as soon as I use my 3 actions for my turn, it's not even true. So right now what happens is once we take one move, the AI being revealed gets alerted for the first time on the turn and goes, okay, on the end of the player taking their turn, we're going to interrupt their turn, have the AI go, take an action, and then give the player back control. And now at this point, if I expend my 3 actions, the AI is going. And I think what I essentially like to do is I'd like to make it so that when we first enter a room, we don't get that immediate alert. Because right now, as soon as I take 1 step, we get that alert action. And I think I'd like that to instead be in response to us getting within the vision cone of the slime. This is something we had done before for Heir of Embers. I have not tested this, so this may not work, but if we go to World, Chapter 1, Sewers, I'm not sure which one of these it was. Modular, maybe? This looks right. So this was Heir of Embers, which was more of a, like, I don't know, overworld exploration game, less tile-based. It's a lot of Infinite Retries is based off this. I've shown it before in previous streams, but this AI here is navigating on a simple state machine. And I think we want to do something similar. You can see it has a bit of a vision cone, and if we look at its systems, it is a beast state machine, and it has an init, an idle, and a patrol, as well as a chase. And so as it gets... Well, there's some weirdness going on with it. Anyways, it doesn't matter because we're not going to copy it directly. But the idea here is that this AI is essentially going into a state where it's saying, I'm going to try and patrol. It's going to patrol along a path. It's going to try and go from one tile to back to the previous tile, then the next tile, and then just keep repeating that over and over again. And every time it reaches one of these destination patrol points, it then goes into an idle state and just hangs out there for a little bit before continuing into the patrol. Now, if I stand here and I let the enemy see me... Oh, didn't... Okay, I'm going to zoom in a bit. If we let the enemy see us... they'll kind of run towards us. And that's the chase state. And if we get far enough away, they like return back to the patrol state and go back to walking back and forth. I think I want something similar for Infinite Retries now. We didn't originally build this because, like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I needed this level of depth. But as we've gotten more kind of elaborate with the setup, I just feel like it's something that we're missing. I want to take a look at how it's currently operating. So if we take a look at the 3D enemy container, you can see it's actually still using the same base sprite. But in reality, it's actually using... Oh, it's even using the same slime. Oh, did I click on the wrong one? Oh, I did. We need to find the enemy container in the IT variation. Right, okay, so it's still using the same sprite here. But it's using the bubble slime, so realistically it wouldn't hurt to come in here and use this slime just so it's easier to tell we're in the right prefab. But this Infinite Retries version essentially doesn't have any of that beast state machine logic to it. Instead, I think all of its logic is driven primarily through... I think it's the AI evaluation, which is not here by default. It probably gets added as a script later. Here. Yeah, okay. If we look for references of this, the AI director gets the component from each of the units, and this evaluate call. Oh, that's fun. That's like a select button I have. But there's a real version of this. Yeah, next. Cool. Okay, so we have like an overarching state machine already for the way combat works. So when we enter into a dungeon, we immediately enter into the init for the combat. Then we go into, I think it's unit turn. Actually, let's just take a look. We go into intro. Intro does a bunch of logic around trying to get any like intro cutscenes or anything like that. And then once that's done, it goes to next unit. And then next unit grabs whatever the current director is and calls next on it. And we have two directors. We have a AI director, which is handling all of the enemy units. And then we have a player director, which essentially is handling all of the player units. And even though we only have one character, which is Hero, I've built this in such a way that we could have a whole team of units if we wanted. We just right now only add one. And it's essentially doing a bit of almost like XCOM, I guess, would be a good reference point, in that we have the player's turns. The player director goes and it will loop through and make sure that every single unit has taken a turn. And then once all of those units have taken all of their turns, we will say that the round is complete. And when the round is complete, we will end the round and go to the next unit. So essentially, next unit comes in here, it calls next. This director does a bunch of logic to figure out what that unit needs to do. And then in here, we check to see if that current director is done. All the units have taken all their turns, players have input all their actions. And if the turn is done and the round is complete, then we go to the next unit and we tell the next director to update. At some place here, I guess it's end of round. Owner.end round. Yeah, so we check to see if the current director equals the player director. If so, we check to see if the AI director has any units, and if it does, we set the current director to the AI. Otherwise, if it's not the player director, we set it to the player director and then we activate. So we're basically just alternating every time we end a round between whether it's the player's turns or it's the AI turns. And then activate, what is this doing? We can take a look at the AI version of it. This just sets that all AI is done is false. So activate is kind of like not an initialize, because this already has an initialize function, but it's just like, hey, we're starting a round essentially with this director. Let's bring the level down even further. This background music is still too intense. Okay. Has unit is checking to see if that unit is revealed. Okay. This new unit call isn't even being used anywhere. All right, and so when we do next unit here, the AI director comes in here and it creates a list of AI plans. It checks to see if any of the units are stunned, or this unit in the loop is stunned. And if it's stunned or if it has not been revealed, we skip that unit and we don't process it at all. Otherwise, we come in here and we try and figure out what its plan is going to be. We ask the AI evaluation script to evaluate the current board and come up with a plan of attack. This evaluation... Oh, right, a lot of this is based off of Liquidfire blog stuff. This is still pretty heavily influenced or, you know, taken from some of the tactics tutorials there. Right, and that's why we moved away from the Beast State Machine stuff of the JRPG, is when we came to using a board again, an actual, like, grid, which we were not doing in Era of Embers, but when we moved to Infinite Retries, we went to more of a grid-based system. We looked to use the AI tutorials from Liquidfire blogs, and that's very tile based. But it doesn't have the concept of like a state machine. The AI does not exist in like a patrol state, an idle state. It just is going to evaluate every turn independent of any kind of state logic. What is happening inside of this for loop? A ton of logic. And this is building up all the AI plans. Then I do some crazy while loop stuff. What am I doing this while loop for? We are creating a sortable sequence step. What are you? Oh, you're... Okay, the naming is a little confusing. It's not an actual sequence step. It is a class that sorts the individual sequence steps. So once we run through the loop through all of... words. We loop through all the AI, and we create a list of AI plans. Then we loop through all those AI plans, and we get from each of them their next step in their sorted list. If that step hasn't been sorted yet, return that as the next step to sort. And if it doesn't equal null, we add it to the sort helper. And if it equals 0, we break. We're done. We leave. This is the exit condition for this while loop. Unless we reach 1,000 iterations. If we have anything in the sort helper, then we loop through it, and we check to see if this is a solo ability. And if it's a solo ability, we continue. If we do not find a solo ability, play all non-solo abilities at the same time. What's this to do? Why did I write a to do here? I don't like that we are checking for sequence step via is. I feel like there should be a way to put this responsibility on the sequence step itself rather than having the AI director decide this. Interesting. So right here I'm checking to see whether or not the sequence step is an ability sequence step. And if it is, I set it to non-blocking. Yeah, that is very possible to move inside. Okay, we may fix that as we go through. I can see a way of... I'm not sure why I couldn't think to fix that the first time, but sometimes you're working on stuff and your brain is dead. But I can see a way of getting rid of this if statement and moving its responsibility to the sequence step. Or at least I have some ideas on how to do that. And then once we've... So this is going through all the sorts and adding them to the list. Interesting. This is a hard while loop to follow, but essentially we clear the sort helper, then we add the next thing in the list. If the count is equal to 0, we break, we're done with the while loop, and we leave. So this is the exit condition. Otherwise, if we've added something to the list, we're going to check to see if it's solo. If we find a solo ability, we continue. Okay. Okay, okay, I can figure this out. I wrote this code. I can figure out the code I wrote. So we loop through all the plans. This should technically add every sortable sequence step. Oh, okay, this is doing it for all plans. So this is basically going to loop through... This is getting next, not all. So this is going to loop through, if we had, say, 2 enemies, we're going to get 2 sequence steps, 1 for each enemy. So this list of sortable helpers is only ever going to be as big as the number of AI plans, and there's an AI plan for each slime for ease of talking about this. So for each slime, they each have an AI plan. They will each get added to the sort helper. If we find that this is a solo ability, then we continue. Which means we leaving the sort helper at its current size. Let's think about it the other way. If there isn't a solo ability, if all of this is, say they're both moving, so they're not doing any attacks, then we go down here and we loop through the sort helper. And if it is an ability sequence step, we set it to blocking to false. And we add that to the list of steps. Oh, we also add the step here. Got it. Okay, so we go through the while loop, we get all of the slime's plans for each slime. We get their next plan. Getting next does not, like, take it out of the list. It just gets the next one that's not sorted. So we could have one slime that has a move and one slime that has a attack. We then find that there are 2 slimes that have actions that they would like to add. We then loop through and find that the first one is a move, so it's not solo, but we find the second one is a solo ability. We add that to the steps, and we say that that attack we found is sorted, and we say that we found a solo ability, and we will then continue coming back up to the top. The first move we found would not have been added to the steps, and when we come back in here, that other move would get next and would still be the next available thing after that attack. Then once we go through this again, we might find 2 moves. Because they're both moves, neither of them will be solo. We'll come down here, we'll go through each of the 2 slimes' moves. We'll set them both to be sorted so they won't get called again. We'll set them to non-blocking because it's silly, but I guess what is this if statement here? This if statement is saying as long as I is less than the count. Yeah, this is just making sure we don't go over when we're trying to access this. Sure. And then we add those steps. So this is essentially just sorting and looping. This part here, I think this whole if statement could be removed. But the idea is essentially, if we don't find something that's solo, then just add it in here. And then at the very end, we add a sequence complete step. This value never increases. I probably refactored at some point, but it looks like this code is always setting this to 0. We'll find references to be sure. Yeah, so this is always 0, so this if statement is always true. We're always making this smaller, though. every time the AI take a turn. Yeah, okay, so this is all dead code. I'm pretty confident in removing this. Alright, so then with that removed, what is this doing? This is basically once we have performed all of the AI's steps, like all the moves, all the attacks, all the things they want to do on their turns, then we say sequence is complete and we say AI is done, which will then say that the turn is complete and the round is complete. We also post a notification that it is the start of a turn for each of the units. I am assuming that's something to do with the... Oh, it's to do with like status effect stuff. So if they're poisoned or stunned or something, basically at the end, this is really at the end of their turns, but sure, it's the start of the next turn, but they essentially decrease any statuses. Sure. There's a little bit of extra logic around stunning and death. But for the most part, the core logic is all happening inside of this next call. This is looping through and assembling all the plans. And then all of this while loop is kind of just sorting everything such that they can all happen simultaneously. Excuse me. So I think that that's fine. So the part we want to change is inside of here. Yeah, okay, okay. So I think the natural progression here is I'd like to pull all of this out. Interesting, we used to call start a turn at the start of their turn. Wonder why I felt it was necessary to move that to the end. There must have been some bugs with timing. Okay. So I think what I'm seeing is everything currently in this for loop, I believe, is the behavior of an AI that is aggressive. If it is revealed, it's going to essentially try and find a way to reach and attack the enemy. What I'd like to do is I think I'd like to add a new set of behaviors to the AI units, and I would like to ask the behavior manager to create an AI plan. There's so much logic in here around selecting tiles, which is just no longer used. Yeah, for the most part, the AI just works without any of this stuff needed. So there's a lot of dead commented out code that I think can just be removed. Sure. Let's do it. Let's clean it up. Let's make it more readable. So this is all the perform attack section. This I'm still a little confused. No, this one's fine. This one I'm still a little confused on. Okay, so I think I want to create a new state machine for the AI. AI state beta is essentially it's a temporary class, but it's slowly becoming more permanent. Eventually I wanted there to be more of a factory for creating these things, but this is kind of being a stand-in for that. but it essentially initializes a lot of the components. I'm surprised. Did I miss it? I feel like I missed it. There should be an AI. Oh, I did. AI evaluation is here. Okay. So there's an AI evaluation state. If we take a look at the other 3D player, 3D enemy, the old Air of Embers one. So yeah, this one had the Beast State Machine, and it had a chase one by default because we needed to determine what combat zone you would be entering if the slime reached you. So this creates a new plan, which is basically the result. It gets the AI evaluation, it gets the plan of attack from the evaluation. It then computes a bunch of stuff based off of the plan of attack, and essentially assembles a bunch of sequence steps for moving and for attacking. Really, AI evaluation is handling all of the plan? The debate I'm having is whether or not it makes sense to make a new state machine, or whether or not it should be that AI evaluation has more logic. It's kind of bit of column A, bit of column B. It doesn't really matter. It's just more of an organization thing. Let's go look at this a little bit. So the way this is operating, we create a plan of attack, which essentially is the result of this function. It's what we're going to return. We then get the attack pattern, which should be somewhere under the unit in its children. From that attack pattern, if we find one, we're going to do a pick of the plan of attack. And so this is kind of going down a level. Yeah, essentially this is just kind of doing... Okay, let's go take a look. So inside of here we have a aggressive attack pattern, and it essentially just has a list of things it wants to do. And it's just going to increment through them. There's, like, you could do a attack pattern which is random, so it's always going to pick a random one from the list, or you could create any variety of these that you want. But essentially it's just deciding which ability it wants to use. So this one is basically saying, hey, my plan of attack here is going to be to try and use this ability. I want to have this preferred distance. Yeah, it's just setting some parameters about the plan of attack, namely what ability we want to use. Then we kind of go in and say should move. We check to see whether our plan of attack is a stationary plan of attack. As long as it's not a stationary plan of attack, we're going to do a bit of different logic depending on whether or not the ability we're essentially choosing is positional based or directional based. In the most variety option of like, hey, we don't really care, we're just going to loop through all the options that AI has, and then we're going to assemble an option that we could take. And then once we've assembled all the options, we're going to pick the best option by essentially giving them a score. And we're going to grade each one's score based off of the ability it's trying to use and the enemy it's trying to hit. And it's going to eventually pick the best option. So by the time we finish running through all of these things, basically the POA, the plan of attack that we return, is going to be the best possible option. So we're going to check every single move, we're going to check every single direction that we could attack for every single possible move that we can do. We basically do every possible thing, and we check to see which one is basically the best option, and that's going to be essentially the one that has us actually moving near the enemy or moving near the enemy and attacking them. That's what we're going to rate the highest. But this all still kind of assumes that we are being aggressive. So we could either make it so that when we go to do a plan of attack, we either use the AI evaluation if we're aggressive. If we're aggressive, use the AI evaluation. Otherwise, we could have a completely different set of logic that just says, hey, I want to just build some sequence steps where I move towards a different direction. And I don't do any of this other magic because this is all pretty complicated and honestly a little bit unnecessary if we're just trying to move towards a tile. But it's already kind of handling a lot of the logic for where we're trying to move to. So we could just also add essentially a switch case to AI evaluation that determines whether or not it's going to do all this normal logic or whether or not it's going to do a slightly different logic, which is like not move towards opponent, but move towards patrol tile. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's really just a question of where do I want to put the logic. It's going to be the same either way. It's just, am I putting it inside of AI evaluation, or am I building a state machine that then uses AI evaluation? Or do I want to break AI evaluation out and make it one of the states? Are all of these functions inside of here? They are. Yeah, this just gets all of our movement tiles in range. Okay. This is doing some math to figure out the best firing area. This is checking to see whether or not we can even target with the ability that we have chosen. This class is so, like, complicated, but also pretty straightforward. Each thing is doing a very specific goal. There's just a lot of pieces. Okay. Okay. I want to use a state machine. It's what I'm familiar with. We're going to start there. So let's take a look at the beast state machine that we had for Heir of Embers. And this essentially has a bunch of parent functions to do with essentially accessing the nav stuff. I'm guessing all of this stuff was in the state machine because it's used across multiples of the substates. Okay, and this is for the gizmo drawing stuff. So then if we take a look at the actual states themselves, if we're in a patrol state, what's happening? Essentially check to see if we spotted, and if we have, we're going to switch states. If we've reached our patrol point, then we're also going to switch states to the idle. Yeah, these are pretty simple. Okay. Yeah, we're going to copy all this. We're going to copy this whole state machine. And we're going to start here because I just feel like I need to move forward. And the easiest way I'm going to find to do that is going to be having a starting point. And then we can rip this up and kind of demolish it and rebuild it for what we actually want. But I just need some scaffolding to work off of. Now, why did I call this a beast state machine? Is that because we already had an AI state machine? No. I think I want to rename it. I just can't think of what I actually want to call this. What would be another good term for our AI? Could just be enemy state machine, but it's really could be more generic than that. Could just rename it to AI state machine. Naming the bane of my existence. Looking for synonyms. Oh, interesting. Some of these seem like they could be good, like attacker, foe, agent. Agent's a term that Unity uses sometimes for these types of... Oh, I probably don't want to... So I like that term, I think, because I've seen Unity use it. Agent would probably be good, but it would also probably cause confusion. Let's go with foe. Still don't love it, but I can always rename if I need to in the future. Mostly because it's brief. Let's do this the easy way. Whoa, okay, let's... Please don't be outside the window. Replace in current document. Yeah. Replace beast with foe. Replace all. 4 occurrences. Then do it here. And then do it here. I don't even know if we're going to need all these states. We're going to set them all up. Again, just trying to get some scaffolding in place. And then we will see what we need, and if we need less, we'll tear it down. Okay, so we've made our new foe, and then we have to actually rename it in the actual files themselves. Some of this will be, I can see that we're going to be able to cut pretty heavily right off the bat. Because we're not going to need transitional states like spot, I don't think. Maybe, actually. Okay. Let's start here. So, we're not going to need ranges, we're not going to need spot distances. Well, we might. No. Well... I don't think so. I'm going to pull it out for now. I'm not going to worry about any of this logic. We shouldn't need any of this. Movement controller. Are we going to need the movement controller? I don't think so. Because we're not going to be doing like 3D movement stuff here, I don't think. And we don't need the AI nav agent, that's for sure. Definitely not going to be drawing any gizmos. Don't need to worry about this. Don't need to worry about that. We're going to remove most of this logic in the end, I think. We're not going to actually be updating. Oh, shoot. Okay, so... Okay, let's take a step back. Definitely don't need gizmos. We for sure don't need any of this... We don't need that. We might need spot. But if we do, it'll be very different. We're definitely not going to be updating the movement manually. We may want to set return destination. We may want to clear return, and we may want to save a return. We don't care about spawn point logic for these enemies, because that's handled differently now. So we don't care about this either. So we don't need... any of this. We may need the path in some form, but the path wouldn't be vector 3s, it would be tiles. The target is the player we're trying to track down. So I don't think we care about that, because essentially if we go into aggressive mode, this system won't really be handling the target tracking. Sure, let's reduce this down to that, at least to start. What does a faux state do? We definitely don't need face target. We don't need to worry about gameplay paused, I don't think. So we're going to start by initializing. Don't need to worry about the nav agent at this point. Don't need to worry about tracking down the target. Then we go to idle. Okay, this is where the rubber meets the road a little bit. So this becomes wait turns. How many turns do we want to wait in our current position? And it'll start at 0, and it can be some number between 1 and let's say 2, just to make things really simple to start. And this is time and state, which is a state machine, like just a concept of states. But we're not going to have time and state be the thing we care about. We're instead going to want to increment Okay. Internal update may not be what we want to use in this situation. This is a good question. How does this new state machine interface with the actual... How does this system interface with the actual, like, AI director that we were looking at the beginning of the stream? think we want to override and remove this. This is like a base part of our state machine setup. But I think for faux state machine, we want to override this logic. Can I make this virtual? I can. And if I do that, I believe that means we should be able to then come into here and do an override and just make this empty and not call base, which should stop it from updating the states. And then instead, we can do an update state call. And then as long as the current state is not equal to null, we'll call update. And I think this should return... I think this should return a plan of attack. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I think I like this. Okay, so this is going to return a plan of attack. Whoa, I hit Control B when I hit Control V, and now it's going to do a build and be upset. I'm sorry. Alright, so I'm going to make it so that this returns. These are all states because it's using our base state machine logic and we're inheriting from it. But because we don't want to have it tick internally, we want to have control over that update and that return. That makes this trickier. This might be an awful idea. Okay. Is internal update also inherited? It is. Interesting. It doesn't like me hiding the original internal state, but if I override it, it complains because it doesn't have the same definition. It almost feels like I need a different version of state machines. So this state machine operates off the idea that we're going to essentially update continuously and update off of a like delta time. So we're keeping track of things in that way. But what I want to build is a state machine that operates instead based off of turns. Which feels like maybe I want to build a new type of state machine that's like a turn state machine and a turn state, rather than keep trying to override some of this logic but still having the original base one that's just different. Sure, okay. So what did I modify in here? I made this virtual. Okay. So instead of doing that, let's copy these. Let's make a turn-based state. And a turn-based state machine. And they are going to operate differently than the base versions. This one will have a int turns in state. Turns in state. This still isn't going to work. The problem is we still want to override internal update. Okay, that seems good. And then we're just not going to have this update call. Yeah, because we do all of this and we still run into the same problem. We remove some of the extra logic we had to write, but we still have the same issue where we can't override the plan of attack version of this. To have a return. This probably should still be an abstract class, but that's not the problem right now. I mean, the easiest approach here is probably to just have it so inside of the AI director, which we're going to pin, instead of having it return a plan of attack, we can just call update, and then we could just ask the state machine for the latest plan of attack. Yeah. And then we can just, in here, do plan of attack is equal to null to start, and then we can do base dot update current state, which we'll call this logic right here from the base version. And then the AI director can just grab the next plan of attack after. It's less clean than the return, but it makes it more reusable in the future. Okay. So this will update our current state. Yeah, let's think about it from here. So we start by grabbing our resetting our turn. We would then grab our state machine. We would then update our state and then grab the next plan of attack that should be populated inside of that state, and then everything else works exactly the same. So the question is, what happens inside of this update current state? And that is going to call internal update. For each one of these. So if we were to start with an initialized state, This state would basically do nothing. Okay, so we probably don't need this one. So we probably start in patrol state. Let's make that assumption. Let's assume we start here. So on a knit, which we'll need to call at some point, we'll start in patrol. We don't need to worry about any of this movement controller speed nonsense. Check to see whether or not we spotted the target. And if we spotted the target, go to the spot state. Otherwise, if we've reached our patrol point, go to the idle state. And this was originally doing owner.update. So the difference here now is we'd want to have find nearest tile towards destination patrol tile. We might want those debugs. If we go to the idle, turns in state is greater than or equal wait time. This becomes wait turns. Then we go back to patrol. So in this situation, owner dot next plan of attack equals null. Which I think we can also do that. Yeah, okay. No plan. We just hang out. Or if we spot the enemy, we go to spot state. Otherwise, we go back to patrol. If we're patrolling, I think we're going to need to come up with a plan of attack. Okay. This kind of makes some sense to me. So we're going to go into the AI director. We're going to ask it to grab its state machine. We're going to ask it to update the current state. If we are in the idle state, it's going to basically say, I have no plan. I'm just going to hang out here and not move this turn. But if my turns waited is greater than this, then it's going to go to the patrol state. If I go into the patrol state, I'm going to need to find my next tile I need to move to, basically. Okay, okay. I'm starting to see it come together slowly. So I think we will still have paths, but these will be a list of tiles. Specifically, core tiles. We will still have a path index for what tile we're currently trying to go to. Inside of faux state, that means we will still have we won't have a nav agent for sure. I don't think we have a target either. Don't know whether or not we're going to have a path ID. This will be a list of core tiles. Okay. What was this doing originally? This was just setting the nav agents. Current destination tile. I think that now doesn't live inside the nav agent. That's something specific to the state machine. So we're going to have a tile. Sure. And then that gets made visible here. Is that right? I don't think that's how I spell patrol. Or I don't think that's how patrol is spelled. It is not. Okay. Just like that. Okay, then with that being accessible here, we should be able to set the patrol tile. Okay, so when we enter the patrol state, we're going to set our destination to be this patrol tile. Set next destination is done once we reach this. Okay. Yeah, alright. Starting to come together. Hello, Amorphous, and welcome. We can do a stretch. We can do a stretch. Do it live. I won't even mute. All right, good call. Actually, I do need to go grab something real quick. All right. Making sure to turn our avatar back on. All right. Where were we? So we are trying to build a state machine for the slime. So right now when we enter into a room, the slime is immediately trying to chase us down and is constantly aggressive. I'd like to have it so that instead the slime acts a little bit more like it has to see you first before it just starts coming towards you. So we are trying to steal a little bit of the logic from Error of Embers and its real-time kind of patrol-based state machine I had for like free roaming dungeon experiences where the enemy would chase you down and then start a random encounter if it reached you. We're kind of repurposing that state machine slowly and kind of figuring out what we're doing with it. The broad scope idea is that instead of doing AI evaluation to come up with a plan of attack, we're going to instead have our state machine update its current state, and that will have the expectation that the state machine will come up with a plan of attack from updating, essentially. And the simplest version is something like the idle. So if it doesn't have a player, it'll just wait a number of turns. In this case, 1 or 2 turns. We could make this, we can make these values that we can tune, but essentially we'll wait a number of turns, and if we wait enough turns, we'll go back to patrol. And the patrol state says each time we call update on it, we're going to try and come up with a plan to get closer to whatever our destination patrol tile is. So we can now have the slime. The idea is, once we get this all built up, the slime will be able to like walk back and forth and pause and kind of just do its own thing. And then if you ever get close enough to it to trigger it to see you, it will then go into like its normal behavior that it was doing before of trying to track you down and try and attack you. Okay, so we have this idea. We have this idea of being able to set our destination and update our destination tile once we've reached it. This all seems fine. The main thing here is that when we get into the return, I don't like... We had the idea of like a chase state in the old system, and we also had the idea of a return state, so once you were done chasing, it would like, or like if you evaded the enemy, it would like return to its patrol path. But I don't think I ever want the enemy to like give up on chasing you in infinite retries. I think once you've made the enemy aggressive, it's going to track you down. I don't think you can lose it. I mean, maybe we add stealth mechanics at some point, but like for now, I just don't think it's worth my time. So let's just assume that we go idle, patrol, and from either patrol or idle, we can spot. And if we spot the enemy, then we're going to go into, I guess, the chase state, which is really just an aggressive state. It's the behavior we were getting before. Okay, let's assume then what was this Wander Patrol? Was it a like child state? Interesting. What was this one used for? It was like a different version of patrol. Amorphous in Twitch chat says something along the lines of, it'd be funny to have all the enemies catch up to you. I will say that the AI will not follow you between rooms. So at some point, like, there is kind of a break if you like just leave the room and then come back. The AI will be reset essentially to just wandering in its patrol path anyways. So they'll only ever be able to chase you until you leave, and then they'll go back to kind of starting from scratch again. So it's not even that crazy. It would essentially, as long as you're in the same room though, I expect that they'll be chasing you forever, which I don't think is a bad assumption. Yeah, I don't think I care for this wander variation, because we're going to make this a lot simpler anyways. So then I don't think we need a chase variation. We don't need an initialize version of the state, I don't believe. We'll leave the return, but we'll clean it up. Head back to... Again, I don't think I'm writing this logic, but we'll just leave it here in a kind of a debug state. I maybe should make a note. So I don't get confused in the future. So the spot state I also don't think we need, because this was for kind of giving a moment of like the enemy noticing you and then giving you a chance to run away before they start chasing. So you could like have them turn and look towards you, but if you could like break line of sight, they wouldn't chase you anymore. But for us in like a turn-based system, when they spot you, they're coming to get you. My only thought is whether or not we want there to be like a turn for them spotting. But I don't think so, because we've already made it so that the like alert icon they do is an end of turn interruption, essentially. It's like it's a response that happens at the end of the turn. Maybe that's different now though. I'm going to keep it around. I don't think we need it, though. I don't think we need this. I think what would make more sense is that when we start up a state machine, we start up in the patrol state. The patrol state is going to try and cause it to go to whatever the next tile it should be trying to walk to. It's going to get that tile. It's going to try and walk towards that tile. If it reaches that tile, it's then going to go to an idle state where it's going to wait a few turns before coming back to the patrol tile with a new destination. I think instead of spot, we're going to go right to chase. I think it's also likely that the spot into chase shouldn't be happening here. I'm going to leave it for now, but I think this logic may actually happen on the ability. So as the unit moves, I expect it to kind of have like sight where it tries to notice the enemy. Because this version implies that we update the patrol. Yeah, I'm just not quite sure. I'm gonna think about it some more. Something about the way this is set up is still a little odd. This one should be mostly rebuilt, so instead of this being chase, I could really even see this being aggressive state. Because it's not even always going to be a chasing, it's going to be like attacking. Maybe that's even better. It's the attack state. It's we're going to fight. Don't think there will be any on enter logic. I think all of this gets replaced with what we were originally doing here. So we're going to set our next plan of attack. Oh, we don't have access to the board. It's not a huge deal. Yeah, I guess we can really just, because it's a singleton, we can just directly pass in board.instance using core. Yeah. And so this is kind of like full circle. Essentially what we were doing originally was we were just doing this logic. And now by adding this whole state machine, we're essentially, if we ever get back into the attack state, it will be equivalent to just doing this logic, but it'll now be happening from inside of here. The cool thing about setting up the state machine is it doesn't have to be this. We could have other systems that send back different plans of attack. Okay. So then the question becomes, how does patrol work? And if plan of attack is ever null on return, which is like what we do on idle, we just don't move and we don't attack. We just move on. Same as if the enemy was stunned or not revealed yet. Okay. I could see a world where eventually these state machines actually handle all of this logic and we just get back a AI plan. Just want to double check, what is an AI plan again? An AI plan is a list of sortable sequence steps. Okay. So it's essentially just a fancy sequence. And a plan of attack is essentially an ability we want to do with a tile that we're going to try and move to and a spot we're going to try and attack. With a direction, preferred distance, essentially some parameters. Which we mostly use the move location to figure out where we're going to try and move to. And then we essentially just pass the plan of attack directly into the AI turn, which is going to turn to face. Based off our attack direction. And an AI ability sequence, which is essentially just going to grab the ability and the location we're going to try and fire on. Is that it? Yeah. I think we only really care about the move target, the fire location, and the ability. The other pieces of it are, I think, are used for calculating the plan of attack. They're kind of just like temporary variables we store. Like targets. Okay. Okay. So now the question becomes... how does patrol work? Let's start here, because there's a couple more things around spotting an enemy I need to figure out. But this plan of attack placeholder function, how does this work? Let's look at the AI evaluation. So when we evaluate, we get an attack pattern. This move towards opponent call, what is this doing? Okay. I see. This Sue is saying that this call is very important because it sets the board up into a state via this search call. What while loop? This seems to be implying that there's something that has to, like, there's another function that matters. I'm gonna guess that's this while loop we looked at a while ago, but I can't see how that would be related. Okay, so if I'm gonna do something similar here, I'm gonna need to make sure I fully understand this function. But my thinking is... we want to do something very similar. Oh, it's this while loop. This is what this is referring to. Okay. So if we copy these two pieces of information and we go back to the patrol state, I'm trying to parse this, sorry. It's... so this function here is trying to find the nearest foe, and we need to do that in order to move towards an opponent. And my gut is, well, we just don't need to call this function. We can instead just say whatever our patrol tile we're trying to reach is, that's the tile we want to move towards, not the current foe, but just to here. But I think this call is saying that we need to search the board in order for this logic to work. Basically, this to.previous has to... Yeah. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to do a board.search from our unit's current tile. And this is the AI, the foe, is going to need to go from their current tile, and they're going to need to search outward till they find ARG2. Okay. Okay, so essentially this board search is given a specific tile, which is where we're going to start from. We're going to run this delegate, in which ARG2 is going to be the second tile that we're searching to. We're going to set that second tile. No, we're going to check to see whether or not that second tile equals our patrol tile. And if it ever does, then it's the same as finding a matching enemy, essentially, aka the nearest foe. So this becomes find path to patrol tile. This is going to... Oh, okay. Okay. So found tile will start equal to false. If found tile equals null, which is if we've not found the found tile, and it doesn't have any content on the tile, then we're gonna essentially just check to see if ARG2 equals our patrol, because that's what we're looking for. Cannot spell this evening. And if that's true, we found it. If we've not found the tile, and it's walkable. Okay, I think this is the same logic. Essentially, we've replaced the, nearest foe null check with, instead of starting by setting it null at the beginning here, instead of setting it to null to begin with, we instead set found tile to false, and then we set found tile to true once we actually find the tile, similar to how we would set the nearest combatant, the nearest foe. And then we use this found tile bool in essentially all the same ways that we were using the null checks on nearest foe. The other thing we're missing here is we'll need to do get component unit, which should be on the same game object as these behaviors in the end. Okay. If we found the tile, I don't think we need this found tile check here because we are always going to have a patrol tile that we're going to want to go to. And then the fallback condition seems to be if we fail to find the move location, we just send our move location to where we're currently standing. Okay. I'm not 100% confident. But I think this is essentially copying the same logic from AI evaluation, but with the intent now that we're trying to instead of reach a enemy, the nearest enemy, we're instead trying to reach a patrol spot. Okay, I think that's probably enough for us to start debugging and figuring out whether or not this is going to actually work. So the idea is that we're going to set up a new plan of attack. We're going to pass that in as a move towards opponent, which is instead going to be move towards patrol tile. That's going to then do a find path to patrol tile function, which is going to do a search through the board to set that up for us. Then we're going to try and find a move location from the move options. I have not fully thought out this. I'm not sure whether or not this is going to work. And this is just getting our options. Okay. This can be simplified. Sure. Sure. Okay, let's start setting this up. So we're going to go into here and we're going to add a faux state machine. We still have more problems. This patrol path. This used to take a list of transforms. This is now going to take I guess a list of points. Yeah, I guess something needs to set the patrol points of the faux state machine. This list. needs to be populated at some point. And the way we used to do that in Heir of Embers was on instantiation of the enemy, we would grab the dungeon spawner's patrol path get path, which would get a list of the spots. Does this remain somewhat similar in Infinite Retries? AI beta state beta. We do have access to the enemy spawner, and we do pass it in. So I guess it would make sense to do get component faux state machine. And then initialize it. And maybe we pass the dungeon enemy spawner down one more level. And then from here, does this thing currently have... It does have a reference to a patrol path, but this is the old version. But that would be the thing we would need to use. Dungeon enemy spawner dot patrol path dot get. What was it called? Get path. But instead of a... It's going to need to get a list of tiles. These are going to be core tiles. This is going to be board.instance.get tile from a point. And that means this is a list of points. This becomes this here, and then from the point the problem is we have two different classes called patrol point, so I think the easy solution here is just wrapping this in the namespace Infinite Retries is going to be quickest. Which one did we just modify? It looks like we modified the wrong version. Okay, copy this, paste this up here, undo everything we did in this file, save, save. Okay, and then the dungeon enemy spawner. Is this the same one from Infinite Retries? It is. Okay, so we're gonna need to make an Infinite Retries variation of this then. And we're gonna have to modify every scene. TO2 should be the first enemy we run into. Okay, there is an Infinite Retries variation of it. Okay, so then... Does this just need to be wrapped in this namespace then? Yes. Now that is getting the right ones. Okay, cool. So everything is good there. That's fine. We don't need this one, but we do need this one. So if we take a look at this object, still more problems. This also needs the namespace now. It's probably going to chain a bunch. And then let me guess, all my substates are going to need that as well. Yeah. That's fine by me. Quick and easy fix. Honestly, something I should do more of. I've definitely not been as good about making sure that every one of my classes for each of the different versions of the projects are in the correct namespaces. Something I should do at some point, but it's going to be long and tedious. So I don't really want to do it anytime soon. Okay, now we have the ability to map to a patrol path. Which could honestly be just here, right? There's no reason this has to be even a separate object. I guess the idea is that I built this so that I could have multiple I think I built this in such a way that we could have multiple different enemies share the same patrol paths, although I think that's a bit silly. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Not 100% sure that this is the right naming. Let's give this a shot though. So if I've set this up correctly, this enemy's patrol path will be moving from here to here. And then repeating. Nightomorphous, thanks for the hydrate on the way out, and hope you have a good evening. All right. Okay. There's problems with this setup, but let's just keep working through it and see what happens. So if we hit play here, I want to see what tile the enemy spawns on to get an idea of whether or not our positioning is even correct. What tile is this? This is 12-7. This is 12-8. This is 13-7. Okay, so that seems to imply that these numbers are accurate. The placeholder ones, and are matching up with the actual tiles that are being generated for the board. Not something that was always the case, but it looks like they might be okay. So let's also check to see what state the enemy's in. So if we look for IT_3D enemy container, it should have a oh, it doesn't. Interesting. I thought I had done this, but maybe I broke something at some point, but if we come in here and go faux state machine, shouldn't need any of this information. Yeah, I don't think we need this. And I don't think we need these things either. Surprised we're not getting a bug or some sort of error for the initialization of the AI state beta. This should be getting component and trying to initialize it. Oh, we never hit save on it. That's why we weren't getting an error. Okay. And we shouldn't need to add the states. I'm pretty sure it auto adds those. Okay, we can hide this as they shouldn't be needed. We'll clean up and remove all this commented out dead code here once we kind of have something that's working. Okay, let's give this a shot. What happens now? Oh, we get some errors. Okay, cool. So it broke on trying to find the next patrol tile to move to, which is promising. It means we're getting into the state machine we've built at the very least. But this initialize is not working correctly. So let's attach the debugger and see if we can see what's happening. Should still be able to find the tile even if it hasn't been revealed yet. That shouldn't be a problem. Didn't hit any breakpoints. That implies that we might be updating the state. Order of operations issue. When we call change state, that's causing us to update the state before we've actually set the path values. We need to first set the path, then change to the patrol state. Okay. No more errors. Good. Okay, so now we're going to try and get the next plan. It's going to update the current state. And because we don't really have the spot logic set up at all, it should just patrol. So now it's going to try and find all possible movement options, which apparently there are 3. It's going to find a path. Hopefully should be able to find a path to the patrol tile, or at least a walkable one. Again, I'm not entirely sure how this is working. I didn't work through all the logic here, but essentially it's finding some paths. Let's get rid of that breakpoint. It never finds the actual patrol tile, but it does find something on the path to it. Interesting. Where are you wandering to if you didn't find the actual patrol tile? Huh. Interesting that it's not finding the patrol tile. It's kind of doing what I want, it's just the search isn't quite functioning correctly. And I'm going to assume because it's not finding it... Oh, we also didn't rewrite this function. We need to have some sort of, we've reached our destination. I think it's if our move location is the same. No. Maybe. Okay. If our move location equals our patrol tile position, then we've reached our patrol point. The point class can do comparisons, right? Yeah, it checks not the class is equal, but that the contents is equal. Okay. That makes sense. Otherwise, a lot of other stuff would be broken, but I just wanted to validate. So then if we come into here, now when we reach our destination, we will set that next plan of attack. We will set our next destination, and then we will change to the idle, which will call this call, but we won't actually do the internal call this frame. So yeah, that's fine. So we'll essentially exit to the idle once we reach our destination. Interesting. Okay, so then the only problem is why it's not getting here. If we haven't found our tile yet, which will only get true if we get into this chunk of code, and the tile we're currently checking I don't think I need this chunk of code. This is essentially checking to make sure the tile is empty, that it's an empty spot to move to, but it should be on me as the designer to make sure that the tile we ask the enemy to move to is not occupied. Now, if the tile is occupied by the player, I would expect the player gets spotted. I'm gonna comment this out, but I think there's kind of maybe a question I need to think on, which is, we're gonna do this in two parts. What happens if the patrol tile is occupied? I don't quite know what to do in that situation right now, but I think this should make it so we can find our patrol point and walk to it. This is a pretty easy tile to find because it is right next to the slime. We'll see how it does on a harder challenge here after. So moving to the correct spot. Not moving. Okay, so it's not Still not working correctly. That implies it's still failing to find the patrol tile when it's doing a board search. Yeah. I want to restart because it was technically already in a bad state by the time we were debugging, where it was not going to find the tile anyways because it was already on the tile. Okay, we're going to come into here. Oh, I didn't save this file. Okay, restart one more time. We might need to stop debugging or... Oh, there we go. Okay. Now it's going to complain because we modified files, but we should be able to stop and restart. I am exhausted, but we are close. Honestly, this is coming together quicker than I thought it would. So we walk up here. We're forming our next plan of attack. We're searching through all the tiles. Our patrol tile is 1218, so we are looking for ARG2 to equal that value. Okay. This is going through a bunch of board search logic. 13.7, okay. $12.6. That's not right. Let's add a watch. Okay, we found 12.8. Tile found true. Okay. Basically, we're kind of just debugging through some of the search logic. I'm just kind of seeing where it eventually naturally ends. Looks like it should end now. Yeah, it's just working its way through all the tiles. Okay. We found some results on that search. Not that we care. We mostly just want to set things up correctly. Found tile is set to true. And we found a move point which is going to be 12.8. So we are going to the correct move location, which is 12.8. Before we go any further, I'm just going to add some breakpoints up here and inside of here, because at this point we should be reaching the move location and the next plan being the same. So move location should be 12.8, and our patrol position is 12.8. So we should get into here, which we do. So now we update our next path index. And then we enter the idle. We're transitioning between the states. This is all good. And then from here, we're getting into setting our wait turns to 1. Okay, so then if we take another step... Oh, we didn't get anywhere. Why didn't we hit this internal update? We should have hit this breakpoint. In fact, we hit 0 breakpoints now. Super odd. We didn't even hit this one. Oh, because we need to move enough in order for... We have 3 actions, so we have to move 3 times for the enemy to go. Okay, so now we come into here, and we do reach the idle state. Okay, so now we're idling, so the enemy is just taking turns. Just hanging out. We move enough. We're now moving to 13-7, so we can take those breakpoints away. We found 13-7 in our search. Did we move to our destination? Our move location is 13-8. So no, we did not. So the enemy moved down here. Let's get rid of the debug. I am hesitantly confident that I think if we just move around, the enemy is going to move back and forth between the 2 patrol points. Okay, so that is passive behavior. The enemy has a chance of either waiting 1 or 2 turns. Oh, because it's an int and inclusive, I think our... Actually, I think it's always going to be 1. Yeah, max is exclusive, so it's going to roll between 1 and 2, but it'll never include 2 because they're integers. So it's basically rolling 1 every single time on that random chance. It would need to be 1-3 for it to actually be 1 or 2 chances. So essentially, it's going to move to a spot, wait a turn. Once it reaches its destination, it waits a turn. So it's there. If I take my whole turn, I get my 3 pips back, but it didn't move. If I move 3 pips, it moves here. It moves here. Now if I use all 3 of my actions, it doesn't move. I move 3 times, and then it starts moving back. So that is the enemy patrolling between 2 points. And if we wanted to try and test that a little further, let's stress test it. Let's say the patrol points are 7-5. So if we go from 7-5 and we start at 13-8, which is where we began, once the enemy is revealed, the enemy should walk all the way over into that little grove and then come all the way back, which is a very specific path. There's only one way there. And the AI is always going to try and find walkable paths. Oh, okay, that did break it. It does not know how to get to 7-5. Alright, is that because we have a limit on how far we're willing to search? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, as long as the tile is walkable and we haven't found the tile, it should be returning true as a valid path. Interesting. I'd have to debug a little more, but let's try something a little simpler then. Let's not go so far. Let's go like 16.7. Because it should reveal its own path as well. It has sight just like the player does, so it will reveal the map as it moves. So that shouldn't be a problem. Nope. Start by moving to 12.8, like we know that worked. And it was able to find its way back. Okay. No, it can't figure out how to get there. What about like 14.7? Because it was able to find 13.7. So if we just move one more further away. I am curious if it is something to do with like its movement range or something. It just can't move that far. But I would expect it to be able to search as far as it wants and then get there one turn at a time. Okay. Interesting. So you were able to move to 14.7, which is this tile. But you can't move to 16.7. You wouldn't do that. Yeah, it must have some sort of built-in range. Somewhere in here? This is for randomizing the direction each time. This is the distance. Does it have a max distance it's willing to do? Oh, I had some like sequence stuff in here to show the tiles that it was thinking about. Could turn some of that back on. Nothing in here seems to be implying that it has like a hard limit. It just needs to be that the tile it searches is less of a distance than the tile it's already searched. Which it should be able to continue doing. There's no like, oh, we've done X iterations, it's too many. Yeah, as long as add tile it comes back as true, which it should come back as true as long as the tile is walkable. Because that's really what this is saying, as long as we haven't found the tile and the tile is walkable, then it should be valid to be added. Is really all this logic is doing. And then we should just keep adding more and more tiles. Unless the distance check is somehow incorrect. I've definitely had the enemy walking all the way across a map before when we had like larger rooms that didn't have as many props and stuff in them. Alright, let's try this again. So we managed to get to 14, but if we do 15. Does that still work? I just want to debug this, and I think we'll probably call it for this evening after this. The how we do the spotting, I will have to come back to. But we've got a good structure here, I think. Okay. Able to do 15. What about, maybe I just didn't give it enough time to move to 16? No, it just doesn't like 16. It's willing to move to 15, but not to one tile over. Alright, I guess. Let's debug through a little bit. I'm fading pretty quick here, so I don't know if I'll be able to figure out an actual solve, but I just want to take a little bit further of a look. Okay, we're coming in, we're coming up with a plan, we're searching through. We should keep coming up with the value we're returning being true, and we should keep adding more. It's definitely searching its way through the map. Like, there are a lot of tiles that it is digging through, but I'm not seeing it ever go to 15. Oh, there was 15. Just trying to find the edge of the map. That's what the nulls are indicating. So yeah, it is like continuing to move through a lot of the space. As it continues to explore. What were we looking for? 16. Yeah, no, it just never found the path. And because we never found the path, it never found a previous tile. That's essentially how this works, is it basically searches outwards until it finds the tile, and the idea is then you can find your tile that is your destination, and then work backwards until you find the spot you need to move to. And we're essentially checking all our move options till we find one that is on the path there. Yeah, but we just never found the patrol tile. Okay, so I have to do some more intense debugging in the search logic to try and figure out why it's not finding that tile. I'm gonna try something real quick, which is gonna be... Well, number one, let's stop debugging so I don't have to keep hitting F5. But I want to walk over to the tile that we want. It needs to be revealed. It can't find it unless it's revealed. Why? Interesting. That doesn't make any sense. I must have some logic in here somewhere that like makes it so you can't search tiles. Or does get tile fail if the tile isn't revealed? Which version are we using? We're doing an XY call, it looks like. So it will be this one. Tiles.tryGetValue. This is just a dictionary. We do add all tiles to the list of, to the dictionary of tiles, even if they're not revealed. Because we're not checking the visible tiles. Okay. I wonder if this random direction stuff is causing issues. It could also be that it just took a couple of attempts to find the right random organization. And it wasn't to do with revealing the tiles, it just so happened to be when I walked over, it was like the right configuration. Just gonna walk back and forth for a little bit and see if the slime eventually moves. No, it is not moving. And then let's see if it is repeatable. Yeah, as soon as we revealed the tiles, the slime was able to move to the path. Okay, well then let's do the most extreme version. Let's say 7.5. 7.5. If the tile is revealed, will the slime come down the pathway? Yep. Coming all the way down the line. And then after waiting a few turns, comes back. Okay, So it's not a problem with the pathing. It's something to do with the board searching, not respecting tiles that aren't revealed for some reason. So I'm gonna have to debug around and try and figure out what's causing that, but at least I have a very clear understanding of the problem. And at least we also can see the AI is doing what we would expect. It's able to path from one tile point to a completely different tile point. Why am I able to walk on these tiles? Can't walk here. Huh. Some of these tiles are set to walkable. That's funny. Just there? Oh yeah, that's set to walkable. There must be a variation of this where we were doing grass instead of bushes here. Okay, cool. Yeah, so patrol states. Did not get it fully functional to the point where the AI is spotting us, but realistically the attack state that we set up should just work, because it is really just the old behavior of the AI evaluation. The trick will be figuring out what exactly does it mean to spot the target, like when is this true? My first impression, or my first thought, was that we would add something into the move of the enemy, so that when the enemy moves, we do like a sight check, similar to how we reveal tiles. But technically, this would be before the enemy's taken their turn, because we set the next plan of attack, but we haven't actually done any of the sequence logic yet. So we might want to do some actual, like, I don't want to say hard coding, but like some logic for spotting inside of the state system or inside of the state machine, to be like, oh, let's check X tiles in front of us, and just not have that be part of the ability, but just part of the system. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about the timing of that, whether or not we want it to happen, because we could have it happen on the following turn. We could do something where we spot the enemy through an ability and we change the state not from inside of an internal update call, but externally. Yeah, we could have an ability effect that updates the faux state machine to attack state, regardless of what state it's currently in. Yeah, that would allow us to still do it via site. Because we can access and modify pretty much anything about the AI, because we modify their animations and a whole bunch of other stuff from ability effects and sequence steps. So we should be able to modify this state machine from an ability still. So if I want to do it there, I can. Yeah, essentially when the AI moves, it does a bunch of tile site effects, which is essentially checking to see if it can see a tile based off of specific offsets in front of it. We could essentially copy all of this and make a new version of this class, which is like, I don't know, instead of tile side effect, I guess it's like unit side effect or alliance side effect, and it'll try and spot an enemy, and then if it spots an enemy, it'll update its state machine to be in attack mode, and then the end of turn response should still be able to be triggered. Actually, where does that happen? When we do the little alert above the head, how does that work? Because we're not seeing that right now, right? Or do we still see it? I haven't actually noticed. Oh, we still do see the alert and the enemy go. Okay, so yeah, if all we had to do then was... Oh no, it's not all we have to do. We need to gate that. That alert shouldn't happen on reveal. That alert should happen on spot. So we're gonna have to find where we're doing that alert. And we're going to have to move it so that it only happens on the moment that we spot. So essentially on foe attack state, enter. Is it on reveal? When a tile is revealed, we check to see if there's a unit on that tile, and then we set its visibility to revealed, at which point it immediately adds the alert ability to it. So yeah, it's on reveal. So I think we just need to take all of this, and it's not going to one-to-one work, but I think on enter we need to do this. Yeah. I think this becomes the responsibility of this state machine. And I think giving it the alert ability is not the worst idea. And then we'd need to set up a getter for it. And then we're going to need to get component unit. Which I'm starting to wonder if maybe we've had to do this a couple of times. We might want to just give a reference to the unit. To the state machine as well, so that we don't have to keep doing this all over the place. It is somewhat costly. Yeah, that would do it. When we enter the attack state, we just queue up an alert. And then this doesn't have this anymore. And then I just need to write a ability class, ability effect for spotting. Okay. Well, at the very least, we should be able to walk up and not get the alert icon now. Yep. It hasn't spotted or isn't concerned by us. We're almost at 3 hours and I am exhausted, but... I bet you it's just this easy. Okay, we can do this. We can finish the concept. There'll be fixes and bugs and things to resolve, polishes to be made, but I think at its core, we're going to check to see whether or not we can spot a unit. And instead of it being tile animation reveal that gets called, wow, this isn't even a custom action or a custom sequence step. It's just a basic action sequence step. This is super straightforward. So this all remains the same. I think we don't need the on-player spawn variation. I don't know. I don't know. I think once we check to see whether or not the tile is null, we can then do a unit call. Clean that up. If the unit does not equal null, we can do a unit.alliance. We need to get a copy of ourselves, which we normally do get component in parent to find the attacker. And then we can do attacker.get component for the alliance. Oh my goodness. Alliance. And if the alliance of the unit I'm spotting does not match my alliance, then attacker.get component faux state machine change state to attack state. And just like that, I think that's all we need. And this should work identically. All right, IT, 3D, enemy container. Faux state machine. We care about this move. This is an old prototype move, so it's okay to mess with. It's only used by the AI. This all becomes unit side effects. We're going to have to go through all of these and copy and paste them. Okay. And then instead of tile side effect, this is going to be unit side effect. And we just need to make sure the offsets match. We can have it have the same conditional in this situation. None of these other parameters are set. So as long as it's identical to the original tile, that should just work. And we just need to make sure that we set the offsets the same. This one has no conditionals or anything. Nope. So then we can just remove that one. And then we just keep doing that. -1 and 1. Zero and 2. Do we care about the delay part of it? Nope. Nope. Okay, those only mattered for revealing tiles, which we're not doing, so we can remove those and simplify. I'm still not entirely sure what the on-player spawn variation is, but that's okay. 1 and 2. Forgot to remove it on the last one. Okay. -1 and 2. -1 and 0. 0, 0. Sure. I don't think we need a 0, 0. That implies that we're checking our own tile. -1. 1, -1. So this is checking behind us. Which again, I think is okay. We don't want to get... I think I want the AI to be able to see behind them, to the side of them, and then a bit further in front. Similar to our normal sight. Okay. In theory, that should work. In theory. We should be able to walk up to the enemy. I'm not sure... Because the enemy is moving to this tile, it should see us. Okay, it spotted us. And is then aggressively coming towards us. Okay. Any errors? No errors. The behavior was a little bit off, I would say. I feel like the AI should have been more aggressive, potentially. I don't know how to better put that right now. Not the most elegant, but I think what's happening is the AI Yeah, okay. So the AI is no longer immediately going as soon as they're revealed. And that's because we don't have the alert happening as soon as they're revealed, which was what was overriding the player's turn and having the slime go right away. So if we get there with any kind of action points left, we can still move past the slime. Like here we have 2 action points left. And we can move away from the sight line. And then because of the way the patrol points work right now, and I haven't fixed that bug, the slime doesn't start moving right away. Can the slime see us here? It can see us over the fence. So the sight line doesn't care about vision or things in the way, because there was a fence and a bush and a log blocking that line of sight. I don't know if I care about vision in that regard. I probably do, so we'll probably want to do more logic for the vision. It can't just be a direct path or a direct tile check. That's okay, our system can handle that. We can just check the tiles in front that we care about, and if there's something blocking it, we can gate the future checking to make sure that the tile before is seen and is valid. Yeah, there's ways of setting that up with our existing system. Okay. So a little bit more logic on the sight part. I think I'd like to have the AI immediately still go as soon as it's revealed, so I'm going to need to figure out how to handle that so that it interrupts the player's turn. This kind of rolls into some of the other combat stuff I want to do around turns and actions anyways. And then yeah, if the AI moves and sees us, then the AI will start fighting. Yeah, I almost feel like for the purposes of initial revealing, I almost want it to maybe do a sight check ability and check everything around it when it first spawns. Like maybe when it spawns in, it looks around, and then as it looks around, if it looks in your direction, then it alerts. Yeah, there's some logic here. There's definitely some logic, but I think the core system is working. The idea of the AI having a state machine, which lets it be in a patrol behavior and a wait behavior on each patrol point, and then a spot behavior, we have kind of working, but I think I would like to add more types of sites where it's not just on movement while patrolling, but also on spawn they have like a look around. Maybe even on idle state they have a look around as well. But I think that I want the AI to feel a little smarter, and so there's like maybe a different state missing or a different spawn behavior, but now we're getting into additional stuff. The core system of you can walk around, you can have that patrol, you can have the AI eventually spot you. That's all working. There's bugs around the AI only being able to find tiles that are revealed for some reason. But overall, I like the way that's feeling. Cool. We have rewrote the AI director to instead check with a state machine, and then each state can determine the AI's plan of attack. And I think that's just better. Yeah. Just a marked improvement and gives us much more control, and there's more to add, but now it should be easier to add those pieces. Cool. We are over 3 hours. I accomplished what I wanted to do. I have added slime state machines. Really didn't think I was doing this all in one stream. I'll probably do some of the additional stuff I was just talking about off camera. I don't know when I'll be able to stream again. Probably another week from now. I'm going to try and find more time in the evenings to kind of work on some of the data entry stuff. That should be pretty brainless, and I'm hoping I can kind of just plow through some of the like adding props to maps and building the rest of the maps, maybe populating a couple more of the cutscenes. But there's a lot more data entry stuff, but I think we're getting really close. The next thing is these things, making it so the battle music changes and the action point meter actually appears once you're actually in combat. Yeah, that's going to require a little bit more logic. The AI director is going to have to tell something when we have AI that are in attack state. Okay, anyways, we'll deal with that later. I think we're coming along. We should be able to do these two tasks relatively easily. The combo system, I still want to do a bit of an overhaul on, but this should make it easier. And then there's the item stuff. Maybe I'll get to that next stream, or it might be this stuff. I don't know. I gotta think about it more. I'm continuing to ramble. I gotta stop. We'll be back when we'll be back. We're gonna continue working towards the demo. Hopefully something in the next few weeks here. I'd love to have it by end of January, but it just feels like we're moving so much slower now that we're no longer on vacation. For now, though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.